In the torchlit silence of medieval Europe, the wedding night was not a moment of love, it was an examination. Behind veils of lace and law, the queen's body became the battlefield where purity was proved. Power was brokered, and kingdoms were kept from collapse. Blood was evidence, pain was ritual, and privacy did not exist. From France to England, matrons waited outside the bridal chamber with linen cloths and holy relics, ready to judge the legitimacy of the union by the stains left behind. To fail this proof was to be declared impure, cursed, or even criminal. It was not a night of passion, it was a trial, where innocence had to bleed. In medieval Europe, the concept of marriage was fused with theology and governance. Love was irrelevant. Legitimacy was everything. The consummation of marriage wasn't private, it was proof that alliances between dynasties had been sealed in flesh and sanctified by blood. The church demanded evidence. The court demanded spectacle. And for centuries, the bridal bed became a courtroom where the verdict was written on sheets. These proofs, 7 in number through custom and cruelty, transformed an act of intimacy into one of state surveillance. Each was designed to confirm that a woman was untouched, obedient, and fruitful, her body a vessel of divine and dynastic law. The first proof was the linen. After the wedding night, servants or witnesses examined the bedsheet for a stain of blood, believed to prove virginity. This ritual, often performed in silence at dawn, carried more weight than any vow spoken at the altar. In France and England, noble women would present the chaste sheet before the court, parading it through corridors as evidence of the queen's virtue. But nature is cruelly indifferent. Some women bled little, some not at all. For those unfortunate brides, the absence of blood became the spark of accusation. The second proof was the test of matrons. Midwives or older noble women, considered guardians of modesty, examined the bride before or after the night to verify intactness. Their verdict could decide the fate of empires. In the court of Henry II of France, a bride's virginity was a matter of state record. The matron's report, written in Latin, became as binding as scripture. It was said that a queen's worth was measured not by her wisdom, but by the hymen's integrity under torchlight. The third proof was even darker, the bedding ceremony itself. In Scotland, Scandinavia, and parts of the Holy Roman Empire, the royal couple was escorted to bed by courtiers. They watched the king and queen lie down, prayed over them, and sometimes lingered until the first kiss or movement beneath the covers. In some accounts, the priest blessed the bed with holy water before stepping aside so the act might begin. Under God's gaze, it was humiliation sanctified as holy duty, yet even in such ritual, danger lurked. In one English court, when a new queen cried out in fear, the courtiers outside mistook it for defiance. Rumors spread within hours. The marriage was cursed, the queen frigid, the union doomed. By morning, ambassadors were already whispering that the king would annul. The fourth proof was the witness's word. When the church demanded certainty, it accepted sworn testimony in place of evidence. Servants, guards, or ladies-in-waiting would swear they heard sounds of joy and completion. These depositions, filed in papal courts, carried legal force. Imagine living a life where whispers through a wooden door decided whether you were a wife or fraud. As centuries passed, these proofs grew more elaborate and more grotesque. In Spain, the bridal inspection became almost forensic. Royal physicians documented signs of consummation, noting bruising, discoloration, or swelling, all written in the language of divine science. Each mark was a political guarantee, but if such marks were absent, the queen's name could be erased from the rolls of legitimacy. Catherine of Aragon endured this scrutiny twice, once as Prince Arthur's wife, then as Henry VIII's queen. When Arthur died young, Henry sought to marry her, but Rome demanded confirmation. Had she been touched? The answer divided kingdoms. Catherine swore her innocence to her grave. Henry swore she lied. The debate over her proof shattered the church itself, birthing the English Reformation. In the north, proof turned public. Scandinavian courts held the bedding feast, where nobles drank and jested outside the bedchamber, waiting for the sounds that would ensure alliance. Shoes were thrown against the door in mock encouragement. Musicians played to mask the dread beneath the laughter. Behind the curtains, the queen trembled not from passion but from the weight of empire pressing upon her. The fifth proof emerged from France's obsession with fertility, the midwife's decree. A bride who failed to conceive within months was summoned for inspection. Physicians examined her body for signs of sin or barrenness. A barren queen was a threat to dynastic continuity, and therefore, to divine order. Some were blamed for witchcraft, others quietly replaced. The boundary between holy womb and cursed vessel grew perilously thin. But nothing was crueler than the public sheet display. In Burgundy, a crimson-stained linen was hung from palace windows after the royal bedding. Crowds cheered, bells rang, and priests blessed the spectacle. Yet behind the jubilation lay the screams of countless women, whose bodies were forced to bear the burden of proof. By the midpoint of our tale, we must confront the truth. These rituals were not proof of virtue, they were proof of control. The sixth proof was trial by confession. When sheets and witnesses failed, the church turned to interrogation. Queens and brides were summoned before clerics to answer questions so intimate they bordered on torture. Did she resist? Did she feel pain? Did she experience pleasure? Each answer shaped theology. To say she had resisted was sin. To say she had enjoyed it was scandal. Only suffering was acceptable proof. In 1314, the daughters-in-law of King Philip IV of France were accused of adultery, after rumors that their proofs were forged. The Tour de Nesle affair ended in blood and fire. The accused women Margaret and Blanche of Burgundy were imprisoned and later executed. Their supposed lovers were flayed alive before the towers where the queens had once laughed. No evidence was ever produced. Their guilt was decided not by fact, but by imagination. The absence of blood became a crime. The seventh and final proof was the trial of the womb. If a queen bore no child within a year, her marriage could be annulled. The church treated conception as divine judgment. Barrenness was proof of sin. Miscarriage was seen as punishment. Catherine de' Medici, despite her power and cunning, spent a decade accused of sorcery because her womb remained empty. Physicians whispered that her first night had been unholy, that some curse had entered with her silence. Here the story turns darkest. The very institutions meant to sanctify love became engines of control. Women were relics before they were rulers. Their pain was doctrine, their obedience law. The proof demanded was never of virtue, but of submission. Yet among these horrors, some queens learned to twist fear into power. Isabella of France, once humiliated by public doubt, led a rebellion that dethroned her husband. She had learned, in that chamber of witnesses and candles, that power began where fear was survived. By the late Renaissance, the proofs began to fade, but their echoes remained. The church ceased public displays, yet private examinations continued for centuries. The marriage bed is evidence endured in courts across Europe well into the 18th century. Even after empires collapsed, the idea persisted. A woman's body was her testimony, her silence her defense. Letters from royal brides reveal a haunting intimacy with terror. One queen wrote that she wept not for pain, but for witnesses. Another confessed gratitude that her husband was too drunk to perform, sparing her the ordeal of inspection. Their words survive in archives, trembling on parchment like faint heartbeats under dust. The obsession with proof would outlive its cruelty. In Victorian England, physicians lectured on virginal modesty as a medical condition. In some rural regions of Europe, wedding night linens continued to be displayed well into the 19th century. Tradition disguised itself as morality, and morality disguised itself as law. Every generation inherited the same myth that purity could be measured, and honor proven by pain. But the truth whispered beneath every candle, every crimson sheet, every trembling hand. No proof could ever sanctify what was born of fear. 7 proofs. 7 centuries of sanctified cruelty. The medieval wedding night, dressed in silk and scripture, became the most intimate form of public judgment ever devised. What began as ceremony ended as evidence, and the cost was measured in women's silence. In the shadows of cathedrals and castles, where faith met flesh, power disguised itself as piety and called it purity, but history remembers. And in remembering, it whispers the forbidden truth, that the law once slept in the bedchamber, and left its mark in blood. Next time, the Virgin Crown, how a dead girl became Europe's most powerful queen.